Patrick Payton to the transfer portal.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime recruiting analyst and college football writer. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. Today's show is brought to you by the College Football Playoffs. You don't want to miss a moment of the action. The College Football Playoff, presented by Allstate, begins with 4 first-round games, December 20th and 21st on ESPN, ABC, TNT, and Max. Well, I thought he would still go to the National Football League draft, but I was definitely wrong. Florida State defensive end Patrick Payton is headed to the transfer portal. Now, his season did not go as many thought, myself included, this past year. We'll go over his stats momentarily, but ask yourself this before I dig into this. Did you really think that he was going to leave or just go to the draft? I'm just curious. Comment, if you would, on Locked On Seminoles YouTube page. I'm really interested to see what everybody thinks because, to be honest, I just thought he was kind of over college. Maybe his grade came back so low that he decided, you know what, I need to go somewhere else and try it out. Perhaps he didn't have a mesh with Tony White or something else with the Florida State staff. I do not know the reasons behind his specific leaving of Florida State. And again, I'm speculating, but he could have went to the NFL draft instead of transferring, but he is going into the portal. Now I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for those of you on YouTube, and I'll go over all the different opportunities with the stats. They do a great job at Pro Football Focus. We'll talk about those as well for those of you listening on Apple, Spotify, Odyssey, and everywhere else. This is a rather interesting season for Payton. I don't know why he struggled so much in some of the games, but like early on this past season, Georgia Tech game in particular, he was awful. His tackling grade in 3 straight games, Georgia Tech, BC, and Memphis, was in the 20s. That is unbelievable for a guy that is as talented as Patrick, because he's as long as a tree. He's 6'5", he's 230 pounds, 240 pounds, whatever it is. He's athletic, he's strong. There's no reason for him to have that kind of grade. Pass rush grade was in the 50s against Tech and BC. That's not good enough, 54.8, 52.3 to be exact. And overall, like, his pass rush grade was 60.4 this year. That's okay. But considering his physical gifts, I think Patrick kind of underachieved there. Run defense overall, 60.1. Tackling for the season, 38.2. There's no reason, again, for that to be that low. He also had 29.6 against North Carolina. His effort in that game was garbage. Against Duke, 37.4. It's just not acceptable for somebody like him to be that way. And he was only 50 against Florida. Like, he didn't give max effort, in my opinion, against the Gators. That's your rival. That is a major problem. Going through the grades overall, there are just too many that I'm seeing in the 50s, 40s, and even below. Again, tackling grades that are bad. The only game that he kind of played up a little bit, Cal, 70.8 overall, 71.8. Rush defense, 59.6 tackling, 68.8 pass rush. Now, as far as just pure stats, take it for what it's worth. 26 tackles, 4 sacks per PFF. Total tackles for loss, I don't have on here, but it wasn't what it should be. I can assure you of that. I also think that he's a guy that, quite honestly, wait a minute, his tackles, are not that. They were 30 overall. So he had 30 and 26 total pressures. But it's not enough for what he's capable of. 4 sacks, 3 hits, 19 more hurries. That's not enough for a guy like that. He also had 22 stops. That's not bad for a guy that played in a position like he did, but because he's more of a pass rusher, probably going to take a few more chances. But a stop means you get a guy at the line of scrimmage behind, or maybe he gains a yard or two. It's just basically a lost cause for the offense on that play because the defense kept you from getting above the chains of where you want to be. You want to get at least 4 yards on first down. Going into third down, you want it to be like 3rd and 2. You want at least 4 yards on each of your first 2 plays. He had 22 of those. That's not awful. But again, compared to Patrick's talent, I don't think that's a very good number. Now, as for what it means for Florida State with Patrick moving on, a couple of comments / questions here. Number one, does Florida State have an immediate fix for him? Depends on how you want to rank it because they're going to a 3-3-5. Maybe, again, that's why Patrick wanted to leave. He didn't like the defense. I don't know. But they got James Williams coming in, so that's certainly a great start. But as a strong side end, they need a guy over there too. Williams is probably the most comparable for Patrick Payton. So I think they did, but they don't have much depth. So it's a kind of a double-edged sword there on how you want to rank that in terms of Florida State concern. They need at least one or two more, probably two more guys out of the portal at defensive end with Patrick entering. We'll see how that goes. Additionally, is this a trend with Florida State? Like the new staff, how are they handling guys like Patrick Payton? And here's what I mean. He wanted NIL money last year and this and that because he was starting to come on. I get it. Are they going to let guys walk unless they kind of fit the team mold better? I don't know. I don't get to be in the meetings, but it's something to think about. Florida State caved a little bit to some guys last year from what we had heard. That being the case, if Florida State is going to elevate itself as a program, they may have to let a few other guys, not necessarily this year, but just moving forward the next few years, walk away. And that's all right. You need continuity as a team over an individual player getting a bag. I understand the right for a player to go out on the market, by all means. That doesn't mean that Patrick Payton won't be an All-American at some other institution. I get that too. But I also understand that Patrick Payton is a guy that is one player that was really inconsistent this last year, had more loafs than I can count, and didn't play well, and obviously going over the stats, in one-on-one situations with running backs, quarterbacks, receivers, way too many missed tackles. His effort was not there. You must compensate the players that are proven and consistent. Patrick Payton did not define either one of those because despite his upside, he never really hit his full ceiling, came close. 2023 had 10 passes knocked down, by the way. That was a good stat in 23, but he didn't come close. So Florida State needs to find more guys in the portal, again, 2 or 3 more defensive end / outside linebacker types, but they don't have to pay $1 million a guy or anything. Payton is an example of that. I'm sure he wanted quite a bit of NIL because he's got some stature, but he hasn't lived up to his billing considering his physical traits. I'm okay with him walking away, and good luck to Patrick. I don't know him on a personal level, but having seen him play enough, I'm not worried about this from an individual perspective because of James Williams. My bigger concern for Florida State is finding the strong side defenseman, the guy that always puts his hand in the dirt, bigger, powerful guy. There aren't a ton of them to fit the 3-3-5 that Tony White, Terrence Pot Roast Knighton want to operate up front. That's the concern. But, again, Patrick Payton is talented. Give him his due. I'm just curious to see how this kind of unfolds over the next month because there aren't many of those guys. So while Payton's a loss, you already got Williams, and that should go pretty good for Florida State. Going to talk more about the Payton loss tomorrow on Locked on Seminoles. Got quite a bit of information. I just finished a podcast. It's getting published right now as I end this one on Transfer Portal, the new offensive lineman that came in. Make sure you check that out on the Locked on Seminoles podcast. Download it on Apple, Spotify, SportsBiter, all kinds of different places, wherever you get your pods. Make sure you check it out. And if you have not already, hit that like button, that notification bell, and subscribe to this Locked on Seminoles podcast. I appreciate it. Everybody have a good one. Take care.